Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juice, and today I am talking to Damien from Looking for GM. Uh, he is offering a service that I'm going to let him discuss. But before I get into that, I just want to quickly mention we've got two miniature painting streams this week. And then we also have our Descent into Avernus game. So our mini streams are going to be Wednesday and Thursday night at about the same time, 8:30 p.m. till whenever we get too tired to do them. And then on Saturday, we will have our Descent into Avernus game starting at about 8:30, and that's with the DM Lair, WSD 20, Mini Train Domain, Paula, and myself. Really looking forward to it. We're in the middle of the Vanthamper Villa, so that if you're looking forward to that, make sure you subscribe. And yeah, and then tomorrow we are on Table Talk Discussions and Discourse. So go over and subscribe to their YouTube channel. It won't be live, but it should go up at some point. We're going to be talking for a few hours about all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be a good time. But with that, Damien, can you tell us a little bit about what your service provides and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to bring this up because I know you talk a lot about kind of the philosophies in gaming and among other things, but I figured it might be interesting to bring up something that's kind of been a hot topic issue in general in the community, which is kind of paid gaming and paid game mastering.
Yes.
And so lookingforgm.com is the actual website itself. It's a service that provides an opportunity for game masters to list their services for payment, basically. And so we basically help with that by facilitating the payment and providing an opportunity for you to kind of advertise yourself with a profile and a number of other things. And actually it kind of started out some time ago where it was mainly, I was using it to kind of have people create profiles and use those profiles to connect with each other. Because like a big problem I found as a game master was that connecting with the right players was really tough. Like I would very often find games that we didn't either fit well or things didn't flow very well, or expectations and interests were different. And so I was just thinking there's got to be a better way. And combining that element of kind of, rather than always looking for the type of game you want, why not look for the type of players or the type of GM you really want? And so I tried to create this system that allows people to connect, create profiles and connect that way by seeing automatically kind of who has games that match up that are similar, which will link to kind of similar interests you have. And you get this kind of percentage profile thing where you can kind of like a date matcher of some sort.
Like
where you
eHarmony or something.
Right,
like
an
75% match.
Yes. And so it kind of started from there, but I had this limited amount of time on my hands when I was GMing as well. And I was like, man, I really wish I could justify doing more of this. And I figured, well, maybe I'll try a couple of paid games. And then I figured, well, I love to build stuff. Why don't I help people do this who I'm sure have already been doing it or are thinking the same thing? And so I just started slowly building this service, and we've been building quite the community. So it's I'm really interested to talk more about it because it's a philosophy and an idea and a topic that's kind of got a stigma right now that I think people are coming around to.
Yeah, it's funny. So my channel is 8 years old, and I remember the first time I ever heard of paid GMing had to have been maybe 7 years ago, like maybe 2013 or so. And it felt like it was a very small amount of people were okay with it. And everyone else was like, no, it's your hobby. Like it shouldn't be a paid thing. Otherwise it's not fun anymore. And it just, yeah, it was just, everyone like kind of knocked on it, but not that I've ever done it. I've never charged anyone, but I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I always have stuck up for the idea, like, because I'm a Palladium Books fan when I got into RPGs, and I couldn't find people to play my game. Right. And it would have been nice, one, if I could have found somebody online who played it. Back then, the only thing I could find is people in a chat room, like a text, like typing it out. And I tried playing like that. That wasn't the style game for me. And I know there's DMs out there who will run pretty much any game if you're paying them to do it. So again, I would have paid for this service probably 15 years ago. Now I have no problem getting games, but back then that would have been great. But yeah, the hobby has come around.
It's not only like the number of like the niche, like being able to find a game that you can't find GMs for, but they're like, especially with everything going on in the world now, you have so many people online and just needing all these game masters. The market just has this need for people to become more game masters. And I think we've been seeing actually a lot of people wanting even to get into it because of this.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And like I was saying just a second ago, the community has seemed to open up to it a lot more in a very short amount of time, in just the last couple of years. You hear about people running games for people, like for businesses, and trying to build team building and stuff. And it's really interesting to me. It's always been something I've kind of sat on the outside looking in and been like, man, I would love to do that. So how does somebody how does someone get started with it? And then how does your service help them if they're trying to get into being a paid DM?
Sure. So I'm not going to pretend like I'm the expert on being a professional paid game master. I've done it a couple of times personally, but I work with a lot of people, or we have a lot of people in the community who actually have been doing it for years and have shared a lot of their experiences with us. And we've been able to hold some workshops where you can actually listen to a lot of their experiences. And I actually come from a business background. I have my master's in business admin. And so a lot of the general theory of business kind of applies to it. You still got a lot of theory, like, differentiation and basically just economics and all the same kind of principles that apply to other areas of business can apply here too. So taking that information and having GMs come in with their expertise and share their knowledge and their experiences has been really helpful. And we've been able to record some workshops that we've held already, so that if people can't make it live, that they can listen to it afterwards.
Nice.
And we held one for how to get started, and we held one just this past weekend for how to increase your prices, or how to essentially differentiate and be a unique product. So I would definitely recommend that people check those out later, and I can send you some links to maybe you can share those, because they'd be beneficial for anyone interested. But just to kind of hit the surface, getting started, I mean, it's essentially as easy as finding the sites such as lookingforgm.com, where you can list yourself as a GM that will run specific games, or if you're open to running any type of game, whatever services you're interested in running, whether it's something you know very well, or you're willing to learn something to run for someone, or willing to run a team building session, whatever it may be, you can essentially create your profile and just list yourself online. It's as easy as that. And you can get people to either request a game, where you'll get a notification on our Discord that people are requesting games. We have it all integrated between our Discord community and the website, where it makes it very easy to kind of stay in touch with what's going on pretty quickly. And then your second question was, after you get started, how to actually use it, how to link onto the website, right?
Yeah. So I was looking at your site, and it's got, obviously you have like the GM directory, Mentors Guild, events, request an event, get paid for your events. So, I see the sign up as a GM. What if you're a player? Like, do you just go to this site and, well, sorry, I guess I'm getting on a different thing, but yeah. So if I'm a GM and I want to do it, I just create an account then, and then.
Yeah, it's super simple. It's very quick. You can use the Google sign-in, or you can create a new account. And once you've done that, you basically just have your username, and you have essentially your account. You can create a profile, which is made up of a lot of information. You're welcome to give as much or as little as you want. The more you do provide, the better it matches you up with others. So you can pick from your role play style, from the games you like to play, from thousands of games that we have on the list, and a number of other things, even location, languages, basically a number of things that people can actually search for you specifically, or that they can just look at their profile and yours, compare it, and see what matches up automatically. In order, though, to get paid, there is one additional step. You do have to join as a Stripe member, because we use Stripe, which is an incredibly growing payment gateway.
It's basically like PayPal Square or PayPal or anything like that, right?
Right. It's very developer friendly, and it's used in a lot of websites recently. So we decided to use it because it does provide us the opportunity to make this kind of marketplace atmosphere where people can do what we're trying to do here. So that is also a pretty quick process. It only takes a couple of minutes to sign up. But if you've been on PayPal and you're kind of used to that mechanic, it's easier than you might think to do it. It takes a couple of minutes. If you are new to it, I do suggest that you at least take a look and see what it's all about. You're essentially just like other websites where you might connect your bank account. It's really basically the same thing, but Stripe has an extra added element of security that they are able to use, and it helps keep everything very secure. So I feel very safe with it, and I would actually recommend that people take a look at it because it's something that I think is going to be more common in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have no problem using stuff like that. My wife uses Venmo. I use PayPal.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of Stripe. They've all been pretty good. I've never had a problem with PayPal or any of that stuff. So I'm pretty trusting of those. Now, I see that you also can, if you just want to join the site and just look for players, you can do that too without charging, and there's no fees or anything. It's just straight, it's free. The only time you're charged, it looks like, is if you're being a paid GM and you get charged 5% of what you make, right?
Yes, so you can use the service for free. We do allow people to list free campaigns and events if they'd like. We do just have that extra element of being able to, so they can actually take advantage of all the profile matching and all of that for free events as well. But if you do want to venture in, if you want to finally, you kind of feel like you want to dabble in the professional side and start getting paid, we have that as an added benefit. So it's kind of both of the best of both worlds. And yes, we do ask for 5% commission on the events that are run through the site. That does help to market the site for others for players to come in, to be able to draw more people into the site for you, and facilitating the payments and allowing all these tools to be at your disposal. Because we have spent a lot of time developing these things, and as much as they are helpful, we'd love to give them away for free, but we do want to be able to support the site to be able to pay for expenses, for costs of running the site.
That makes sense. So when did you guys launch your site? When did it open up officially?
So it's interesting because I actually started this a couple of years ago with a partner of mine who ended up having some personal life things go on, and he was the developer. I was handling kind of the business side of things. So he wasn't able to continue and, handling people's money. I didn't feel comfortable having the website up and running without being able to correct things if necessary. So I took some time away from it I actually picked up coding on my own and began developing it myself.
So, and 1 week later, it was done. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and then it was just magic. No, and then it took some time. I definitely wanted to have the right tools in place. So I took some time to do it right. And we launched it again back in March-ish.
Oh, okay. So it's fairly new.
It is, yeah. The current rendition of it is definitely much newer. And so we've been kind of trying to ramp it up, and we've got a great Discord community now of a lot of GMs that have been sharing information and ideas. And we've got hundreds of players on the site, and 100 GMs and players, users on the site. And one thing I would like to mention, though, is for the player side of things, although you do need to be a member to actually sign up for an event, you're definitely welcome to come by and just look at it without signing up. You can look through the directory of GMs, get an idea of how everything works. You can even look at the games that are offered. Everything is basically open. There's nothing behind a paywall except for just basically being able to sign up for events, which is required for safety purposes, to have information about users and things like that.
How much personal information do you have to share publicly with the site? Like if I signed up today, say I didn't want to use my real name, can I hide that from everybody, or how much is out there?
It's definitely up to you. We do suggest and recommend you use as much as you can. We believe that having your face out there and your true self out there does allow you to not only connect better with people, but it just gives a bit of a more human feel to it. And if we are looking for the right players and the right GMs, we kind of want to have that element. But we don't require any specific information among just a couple of points, which are more for like the dealing with credit cards and things like that. We require a couple of elements of information there. But if you don't want to provide your name, you don't have to provide a picture of yourself. You can use a logo of some kind. you don't have to really apply much information into your profile. The
Mhm.
more you do, I think the better the results are, but you're definitely allowed to keep it as minimal as possible, just the minimum requirements to keep things running.
Okay, cool. And then you said as of this time you have hundreds of members. Do you know exactly how many members you have right now, and how quickly you guys are growing? Or
So since March, we've had just over 600 people sign up, and we have it's with GMs, it's a little bit different because if you don't list yourself as looking for players, you're not actually listed publicly in the directory. So you have to meet that requirement to be listed. So depending how many are actually listed or not, we have anywhere probably upwards of 200 people actually physically listed right now. Another couple hundred listed as GMs, but not necessarily looking yet. So maybe people that are interested but haven't really taken that step to get involved.
yeah,
We have at least 60 of those GMs have signed up for actual Stripe accounts. So we have 60 paid GMs actually working on the site. And then the remainder, we assume, are players looking for GMs.
nice. That's really cool. So you said you've been a paid GM a few times. Have you done it for online games in person? How did that come about?
Yeah, I just did a couple of games. One was a D&D game, and one was a game of Dungeon World, which was actually my niche. But I
Oh,
had
okay.
easier access to players, paying players rather, with D&D. So I did a couple of those. Very minimal. I asked for $5 a head. Probably not
That's
something
bad.
I would do nowadays. But at the time, I wasn't really hearing a lot about it,
Mhm.
and I was testing the waters a little bit, just seeing like what was even possible. So by the time I did my second game, I was like, you know what? I want to build something that helps others do this, and I just started from there.
Right. Cool. Cool. So Dungeon World's your game of choice.
I love Dungeon World. I did not know. I like. Don't get me wrong. D&D is a great game,
Mhm.
and I think it's evolved very interestingly over the years. But I started with it, so it was like my entry into RPGs. Maybe I don't know, almost a decade ago. And I loved it at the time, but I don't think I knew what I was missing because it's very mechanical and very crunchy compared to a lot of the narrative games out now.
Yeah.
But once I hit Dungeon World and had that narrative experience, that kind of shared narrative at the table where players and GMs all created the story together, and it's more about the storytelling than it
Hmm.
is about the dice rolling. Although of course the dice rolling is a great element. I just fell in love, absolutely fell in love, and I started following Adam Coble, and I love all his stuff. And I know he had some stuff happen in
Yeah.
the recent past. It's unfortunate to hear, but he created a great product with Sage Toro, and I love their work.
I've never played Dungeon World. I know nothing about it. What is it about the mechanics that lend themselves to a more narrative style?
So there's a lot of different philosophies that go into it. There's a lot more behind how you should treat your players and how you should treat things that happen. So really staying away from like the no, right, and then
Yeah.
always kind of a yes and type of
Hmm.
situation.
Or yes,
Um,
but.
right. And I'm not, I'm no expert on the game mechanics myself, but I've played enough to know that it lends itself very well to developing the story and bringing the players on like a shared adventure where you're really more of a guide through the story than any kind of all knowing, all telling ruler of the game,
Right.
right? Which can happen sometimes, I think, in some of those mechanical games, which is fine too. There's a place and a time for everything, but there was definitely a different feel, and it was there's something about the mechanic of the 2d6 mechanic too that
Yeah.
and the way things fall that really drives the story as well. It helps to actually push things to happen rather than like you roll a 6 and it fails and then like nothing happens, right?
Right.
um, yeah, so that's kind of what got me hooked.
Have you played Genesis or Fantasy Flight game Star Wars at all?
I have not. I'm assuming it's something similar.
It's different, but it's all about narrative. So the dice don't even have numbers on them. They're like you have different things. I've only played it twice. So I played a homebrewed version that was not Star Wars, and then I've played Star Wars. And I'm actually helping a friend play test a game that is based on that as well. It's pictures on dice, but he uses different sided dice and stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, so anyways, the idea is you can succeed but have like negative things happen, or like maybe you fail but positive things happen, depending on
Okay.
how many of the different icons show up and cancel each other out and what's left. Because some things just don't cancel each other out. Like you might have like a, I don't remember what it's called, but it'd be like a critical success, but you failed at the actual thing. So maybe you failed to shoot the bad guy, but in the process, you missed him and you shot their ship and their ship won't take off or something. You know,
What is the name of that game? I think I'm gonna
it's
have to try
so
that.
it's by Fantasy Flight Games. It's Genesis is the name of the system. They did all the Star Wars games in the last few years. Technically, I don't think Fantasy Flight Games is making them anymore, but I think a new company is going to be picking it up here soon from them. So I don't know a whole lot about the ins and outs of that, but you would probably like that just because it's a more narrative thing. And my wife played it. That was the first game she ever played that wasn't like mechanical focused, and she
Sure.
had a blast. So, like to the point where she was like, "We should think about getting those." And then I told her like, "Oh, well, one of the books was like $100." She's like, "Never mind." And that's because they weren't printing them anymore. But that was a couple months ago. So,
That sounds like it's up my alley for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's really popular among everybody who's tried it. I don't know anybody who's played it and didn't like it. I have yet to meet someone who didn't like it who played it. So
So you said you've heard of like game powered by the apocalypse, which is kind of the general engine which Dungeon
yep,
World was created from. Have you
yep.
you haven't had a chance to play?
No,
Have you just not played it, or you
no.
just kind of hearing about it recently?
Yeah, so I've kind of heard about it for a little bit, but it wasn't until a couple months ago. Someone in my Discord was talking about Monster of the Week, and
Oh
so
yeah.
I know a few other people who are fans of that system, but yeah, I just haven't had a chance to play it. And I don't own any of it, so I haven't really read up on it. Lately, I've started dabbling with Pathfinder Second Edition personally, um, and I like it. I'm actually really excited about that system. But no, I've actually also, this is my last interview for a little bit. I'm going to be trying to line up one shots on Fridays now, and
Hmm.
cut back to doing these like interviews like once a week probably at most, and just trying to fill Fridays with one shots. So like that's something I've been planning on reaching out to him about now that I have availability. So maybe I'll get to play some Powered by the Apocalypse soon. I don't
Look
know.
me up, man. I'll run it for you.
You know what? I would love that actually. Maybe we can say something after we get off air about setting that up.
For sure. For sure. I would love to.
Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, so I'm open. I actually want to try a lot more systems. That's kind of my goal this year, and I've already tried like a few. Like I said, Star Wars. Like the Fantasy Flight games. I tried it for the first time in like January, February. Then my friend, a different person, ended up saying, "Well, I have this other game that's based on it." So I was like, "Yeah, I'll play it." So we did a one shot of that, and then he's making his own system now based on it. That's now
Oh,
a
cool.
new variation, like I said, with different pictures on the dice and different sides on the dice, but it's still the same kind of concept, narrative, storytelling. You can succeed with failure, you can fail with successes, and yeah, it's really cool.
So I have a question about that. I saw
Yep.
some dice the other day at a thrift store I was at, and
Hmm.
I can't get enough of thrift stores. That's another one of my addictions recently. And they were like just pictures of things on each side of the dice. And I was thinking to myself, that's a really cool idea. But how do you use that in the moment? How do you roll like four dice? You see them, and it's like you have to interpret what it means and then
Yeah,
somehow apply it to the story. I feel like
it
I would
took
get
5 minutes
How
to
does that
figure it
work?
out. So I was really confused at first, and even having someone explain it to me confused the hell out of me. Once I started playing it, um, it took like 5 or 10 minutes, and I was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. I would forget
Okay.
little things like what cancels out and what doesn't. It's really not that bad. Like, so I'm gonna try and pull up the dice real quick so I can better explain it. But like there's some really cool like what is it? Like the stuff, it's like it might have like a single symbol or a double symbol, or like I think it goes up to three. Oh, they're called triumphs. So it's not a crit, it's called a triumph, is one of the things. And then the negatives I think are called like setbacks. Um,
Okay.
but like one of the things looks like a bullet wound, and you can have like up to three. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to explain because I'm not really well versed in the system, but it's really
Sure.
cool. In fact, I'll post the dice in the chat here so you can kind of see. Oops.
I would be worried that it would be almost limiting because like if you keep rolling, let's say that the three of the same images and it's like bullet wounds again. Oh geez.
No, so the bullet wounds don't mean any, like, it depends on what your action is. So for example, I was a robot, and one of the things I was trying to do was I think I was trying to open the squad bay door, or no, I was trying to close it because we'd just gotten in, I think. And as I'm trying to do it, um I failed, like I succeeded, but I had a setback. That's what it was. And so
Okay.
I was able to close the door, but when I did it, I fried the control panel. So you couldn't open it again. But the whole idea is we had this ship in here that we had to get out somehow. And now the door's jammed shut because of the setback. So
I
it's,
see.
yeah, so the symbols don't necessarily mean what you're doing. They just mean if you succeed or fail. And like
Okay.
you can have, like I said, the triumphs or the setbacks. And I'm probably, the terminology is probably wrong, but the triumphs and setbacks are like criticals. Like those are automatics. They don't cancel each other out. They are what they are, kind of thing. So if you have a triumph, like you're automatically going to do something good, but you might have 3 degrees of failure, right? Which means you really failed bad.
Right.
And so even though you failed, you still get something good. And what was cool is the person running the game for us gave us the narrative control to say what it was. So we had to like on this like improv what it was right away. I could see like in some games, you know, maybe the person running it might decide what it is. And they also might veto you and say, well, that's a little bit too much, or that's, you know, or they might go, oh, is that all you want to do? There were also some other cool aspects to the system that we were using that were, because we were playing Star Wars, we were using force points. So if you used the good force points, then the game master or whoever was able to use them against you then. So, and he couldn't do it until you used them. So maybe we failed and we didn't get any triumphs, but we want to use a force point to roll another die or whatever to get another chance to succeed. Then we would do that. And then, but now next turn, he might use it to hit you or whatever, you know, to add more suspense or to make it so that something doesn't work in your favor. Now you got to roll an extra die.
Did you find that difficult to, were you used to like being able to kind of, if the GM passes that narrative back to you, did you appreciate that or did you feel, because some
I,
players I think that aren't used to it feel uncomfortable when that happens.
sure.
Like what do I say, like how do I do this?
So it's something I have learned. Well, so I came from a crunchy system. I was never given control when I first got into RPGs, and I've played with. In fact, most of the campaigns I've played in have not had dungeon masters who give up a lot of control. Um, and you know that was my experience with D&D and Palladium books in the past. Um, I would say around like 2014, I started playing with different DMs. Like I played in a game with Matt Click from A Fistful of Dice called The Provokers. We were allowed a lot of narrative control. I played in some other online games. Again, learned. We even experimented with different narrative tools and techniques that you get from improv, and we applied them in games. And even as DMs, a lot of us did a lot of like things that you would read in a book. Like we would try to do cut scenes and flashbacks and all these things. So we experimented with a lot of this stuff. And so I would say I learned a lot about 5 years ago. So I would say pre 2015, I probably wouldn't have been as comfortable at first. But I kind of like it. And I like having control. I'm kind of a control freak in my day to day life. So having, but I like to give narrative control to my players too, like a lot. Um,
Good.
but yeah, as a player, I definitely like having control of the story a little bit. It was really cool. Like, I don't know, like the fact that, okay, yes, I was trying to do something and yeah, I screwed up, but I still can come up with some kind of off the wall idea that might work. I like that a lot.
I think it builds trust too in the group, like
Yeah.
between the GM and the player, where like the GM trusts the player to not take advantage of the fact that they have this ability to add narrative, but
Yes.
to take that and actually build on their character. Like I actually try as much as I can to beat my characters up as a play, like my own character when I'm a player, because I love to see development in myself to like see how far I can push the boundaries of who I'm supposed to be in that character, right?
Yeah. Apparently my screen was messed up this whole time. There we go. It's fixed now. My
No worries.
friend Mike from Unmade Gaming is like, by the way, your screen's messed up. All right, I fixed it. Um, yeah, I do think it adds a lot of trust. I think especially if you've never played that style of game before, um, I think it does a lot for you. Like my wife, I think, because I've brought her into some other games in the last couple years, she kind of came from that more structured way where the DM has final say. They run it a
Yeah.
specific way. They railroad the story a lot of times rather than sandbox. She pretty much grew up with just her brother running a lot of her games. She played in like other games in college and stuff like that, but again, it seemed like a very similar experience every time for her from my discussions with her. And so when I would tell her about games like 5 years ago, she'd be like, "How does that work? I don't understand how you can just add to the story as a player. Like, you don't know what the DM has planned." And I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of the fun in it." And even as a DM, I loved it when players would do that. And I would try to explain it to her like, "I like not knowing what's going on and when my player ties themselves to an NPC or whatever." So it took a while for her to see that because she didn't play online games 5 years ago, and she's the one who got me into D&D after, like, I was into RPGs for 13 years, but she got me into D&D specifically. But yeah, in 2017 ish, we had a couple guys I knew come over to an in-person game, and she was running it for us, and they were really caught up in the RP, and they are very much a adding to the narrative type of players, and it threw her off at first, but after like 2 sessions, she was like, you know, that's really awesome, and I wish I experienced that before because I could just sit there and watch the game. I didn't even have to like do much. And I was like, exactly, you know,
And when you
it's just more
see
fun.
players come from other systems to done like for, I mean, any
Yeah.
player, any Powered by the Apocalypse, but I'm just so used to Dungeon World that I keep bringing it up. But when you
Yep.
see new players come into it and you give them the opportunity and you see their face light up with this magic, like, is this possible?
Yes, that's how she was. In fact, when we
I
did the
love that.
Star
Yeah.
Wars, we did Star Wars. A friend Paul, who I didn't know him in person at that time until he came over. He lives like 2 hours away, and he had been wanting to play Star Wars with me for years. And the first time I ever heard of the Star Wars by Fantasy Flight Games was like 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. It was like almost when it first came out, and they only had like one of the books out, and everyone's like, "You got to try this," and I'm like, I'm not comfortable running Star Wars. I don't know, and so I've just kind of been like wish-washy for years, and then finally last year I was like, you know what? You should come run it for me. You live close enough. He's like, I'll do it, and so he came over and ran it. And like the first time we had that thing where it's like, yeah, we failed, but we failed, but we were able to still do something. My wife was like, "You can do that." Like she was just blown away by it, and he's like, "Oh yeah,
What?
yeah, that's the beauty of the system." Like,
Yeah.
like yeah, you failed at what you're doing, like, but you still had something cool happen. Like, I think that's what makes it awesome. There's other games that are kind of like that too, like Fantasy Age by Green Ronin. It's a 3d6
Mhm.
system. If you roll doubles, one of them's a different color, or one of them you designate as like your stunt die. If you roll doubles on anything, then the number on the stunt die is how many like narrative or stunt points you have, and there's charts that you can spend those points on. I haven't played it yet. I've owned the system for a couple of years, but like for example, you'll have combat stunts, you'll have spell stunts, and you have like social encounter type stunts. And so, like, as one of the things that might happen, if you roll doubles, you might have like 4 points. Now, you can buy different attacks that you can do right then and there because you have to resolve it right there. So maybe one is a sweeping attack. So now you're hitting like 3 guys instead of one
Mhm.
because you did doubles. So it's really cool. Will Wheaton played it it was Ashes of Volcana on his old Geek and Sundry show,
Mhm.
and they used it's modern age now, but they didn't have modern age out yet. But it's still that system, and that was actually a really cool show to watch too if you ever have time. But yeah, I'm all about if there's a cool like a system that allows you to do cool stuff. I'm all about it.
Yeah, and every different kind of system brings a new mechanic to and just another tool to the toolbox. So
Yeah,
I definitely played way too much apocalypse style
yeah,
games, and so I'm kind of stuck in that mindset very often. But there are so many things you can learn that just add to the, like, I do recommend any GM play as many games, different mechanics as they can, because they all just kind of lend different flavors and elements that you can carry over into other games for sure.
Yeah, like my ideal system is somewhere between Pathfinder Second Edition and D&D 5e, but I would like the idea, for example, of the Fantasy Flight thing where you can succeed but have some kind of a failure thing, or vice versa. I wish, like, I'm trying to figure out a way to like homebrew that into that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know
What
how
are you
yet.
pulling from the Pathfinder side? You like the crunchiness, the mechanical?
Not the crunchiness. Nope. It's all about choice. I like the customization of character creation. I like having the options as a player to do different types of things based on choices I've made, rather than just, oh, I get to hit something. So like 5e and Pathfinder Second Edition from a build standpoint aren't much different, except Pathfinder Second Edition feels more modular. Like you make almost every single choice. Right. Whereas D&D 5e is, here's a racial template, boom, slap it on. Here's
kind of pre-modulated,
yeah, here's a class template, put it on, and here's a subclass template, boom. Like that's kind of you get some choices, but not nearly as many. Whereas if you are playing Pathfinder Second Edition, you can say, all right, I'm going to be a dwarf, but that gives you your speed and your hit points. That's it so far. You still have to decide, well, unlike D&D where you pick just a sub one, you pick a heritage, which, you know, whatever it might be, but then you still have to make a feat choice associated with being a dwarf. That feat choice might make you better at something you're already decent at, or it might be something completely different. However, in Pathfinder Second Edition, it's all very situational, and things don't stack like they did in First Edition. So you don't get that power creep like you used to get. Like people used to complain that at first, second level, you can be way too OP, and it's not like that in Second Edition anymore, which is a good thing. But no, it's not the crunchiness. I wish I could take 5e rules and slap it into Pathfinder Second Edition and play it smoothly.
That's one thing I was laughing because I remember when I first ran into Pathfinder, I was creating a character, I think, for months because there were so many choices, and then I never played it. And so I was laughing that you're right. There's so much customization.
Yeah. There are some choices. Like if you're a fighter, you're going to choose your ancestry, which is your race now, your sub race, which is a heritage, and then you're going to choose a feat. Then when you choose your background, here's the other thing. You don't roll for your stats anymore. So like if you're a dwarf, you get a +2 to con, and then you get a free choice, and then you get a negative to something else. So like everything starts at 10. When you get a plus, it bumps it by 2. So if Constitution would be a 12 after just choosing your ancestry. Once you choose a background, whatever that gives you, which is typically like one ability and then one free choice, and you can't double up the free choice with the one it gave you at that tier. So as a dwarf, if I get Constitution from it, I can't use a free choice on Constitution right there. I can use a free choice later on it though. But yeah, so it allows you to like build the character you want if you optimize the choices, but you're still not going to end up with anything over 18 the way it's set up. And so you're still not that game-breakingly powerful. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's just with every single choice too, there's a role-playing element to it. And like they put some good flavor text in every choice where it's like, oh yeah, I could see myself, you know, being a tomb guardian dwarf now because, you know, that's the heritage I took. And oh, I took this skill that allows me a circumstance bonus of like a +1 for perception. Well, maybe I'm so used to standing watch, like I'm just really perceptive on like every little thing nearby or something, you know? And then the background does the same kind of thing. And the backgrounds are short, but it gives you a couple things and it has some flavor text. Before I got into it, someone was explaining to me a gnome. So they explained their character to me. It was a gnome urchin who used to travel in the circus and like happened to be like a sorcerer or something. But like this huge, long, drawn out explanation of what their character was just based on the choices they made at first level. And I was like, holy cow, like that sounds kind of cool. And they had like an animal companion or something. It was really cool.
See that I'm one of those people that's like choice overload or however you say it, where it's like I need to have things filtered down to a minimum for me. Then I can pick, because otherwise I'm like, how many, what kind of points, what? Right.
I understand that. My brother-in-law's like that. He's a lawyer, so everything's like very like, nope, it's like this. And he'll read because we play 5e with him. Actually, he plays in my BlackRock game, and then my wife runs Tomb of Annihilation for us, so we get to play in that game. And he will read. He's a wizard in that game. He's read every single spell that he can take, and he'll ask you. He'll narrow it down, but it's still like half the list, and he'll say, "So which spell's better, shield or fireball, or whatever?" And you're like, "Well, it depends on." The answer is always, "Well, it depends."
It depends. Yeah, sure.
And so I always say that, and then he's like, "Yeah," and so then we talk it out, and then finally he makes a decision. But yeah, it's kind of funny. He's also playing a cleric in our one game, which obviously as a cleric you get all the spells. You just have to decide what you have that day, and so that's again, it's the same thing. He has to go through and make his decisions.
Yeah, sounds very analytical.
He's very, and he's also, because he grew up in old school D&D, he has a hard time wrapping his head around like that a cleric can do anything other than heal, or a rogue can do anything other than steal or pick locks. He has a very hard time with those concepts because of 30 plus years of playing it one way.
Right.
Second edition, that was his thing for almost 30 years. So luckily we were able to break him of that.
Yeah. Once you see those, you can definitely get into your ways. That's what I've seen for sure.
Yeah, and I was on the verge of doing that when I got into RPGs. I
did it too.
Yeah, I was strictly Palladium books for 13 years. I early on I exhibited interest in D&D, but there was not availability in my friends group. There were like 8 of them plus boyfriends and girlfriends. So there were like, I think 14 people at any given time at their table. And it was just an air hockey table, so there wasn't even enough room to sit around it. So I was never able to get in on that game in high school. And then after that, I just kind of got set in my ways. I'm like, I'll play some Heroes Unlimited, some Rifts, whatever. And always played in chat rooms. Wasn't the best time, but it satisfied my need to role play.
What do you mean by chat rooms? Like text or?
Yeah,
or
like
more...
think AOL Instant Messenger chat rooms. Think like that.
Yeah.
But
do you remember AOL back when it was? Does Red Dragon mean anything to you?
It sounds very familiar, but
So like they had rooms that were like basically RP rooms.
Yeah.
I guess they weren't really more like RPG rooms.
Yahoo
because
used to do that too.
You weren't playing a game, but it was like all just RP and like it was basically the same idea.
Yeah. So I used to use Yahoo because Yahoo had the voice function, which was really cool. So I used Yahoo for a bit back in like, oh gosh, we're talking 15 years ago at least. Yeah, we're talking about 2005 probably.
Oh, Yahoo Chat. Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, you'd push the button so you could speak. Yep. And so I did that a little bit. Nothing ever, that was the other thing too. I could never get a steady group on any of those platforms. The only one that worked for me is Palladium Books, and I still think they have it, but they have a chat room set up through their website. So if you go to their website, you can go at the top and they have like a Palladium chat. And like as recently as like 2 years ago, there's still about like 14 people in their chat room at any given time. And now that I say that, I want to see if they still have
I believe that. I used to play what do you call them? MUDs, right? Multi-user dungeons, where they're basically RPG built into a game, a text game. Mm-hmm. And those are still around now. You still have hundreds of players playing together. You could go back now and I mean, it used to be thousands, tens of thousands of people at once back in the day when it was popular, but now you still have hundreds of players playing because it's a whole different world when you play by text. It's like you live it. It really is so enveloping, and you get so sucked into the world. I recommend everyone try to play a text game at some point.
My favorite stuff, I did do a play by like a message forum once, and I had read the game for months as other people played it, and they were probably 20 pages deep by the time I was able to get into the game. And I remember
like play by post.
Yeah, and I remember reading it. I was so caught up in it because I loved the descriptions everyone gave, and I'm reading it, and I loved it. And then when I joined the game, everything moved so slow that I lost interest so fast because I was like, this is like just too slow for me.
Have you tried Rollgate or one of those websites now where they have like a functioning actual site built to handle play-by-post?
No, I have not. I've heard of people using Facebook though, just using their Facebook Messenger.
Yeah,
And I've heard that work, and Discord as well, just using the messenger on there. And I've heard that works really well because obviously people get notifications on their phones nowadays.
right.
And so it flows pretty well compared to how it used to. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know. I had sworn off of it at least like 8 years ago of doing like a play by post, but that might be a now that I'm thinking about it with how quick it might move now. Maybe it's something I'll do again. I don't know.
It's good for when you know you have like if you always like take a bus or a train ride every day and you have like that
Yeah.
20-30 minutes where you want to just you want to get your little fix, right? Your little RPG fix, but you don't have a lot of time and all that. That's exactly what it lends itself to.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, like right now, gosh, I'm involved in a few games. My bandwidth is very thin. I've got so many
Yeah.
games that I'm like permanently part of.
Yeah,
That's why I'm
sorry
trying to
about
do
that.
Fridays as one shots because it's a very little investment. But yeah, maybe if things ever change for me, maybe I will go back to a play by post game. I don't know. I don't know. This is the first time I've said that in like 8 years. So, in fact, I did a video last year about how I wouldn't do it.
Well, maybe that'll change.
It
Times have
probably will.
changed.
That is true. And my opinion has changed a lot in the 8 years I've been doing videos. So, you know, I remember like, oh gosh. Yeah, paid GMing has always been a big hot topic in the community. Like I said, back in the day, it was definitely frowned upon. Now it's not like it's just a few people are just standing pat. I feel, but I think everyone's more accepting of it now. Like I think people look at it differently than they used to. You
Yeah.
know?
And I think a lot of where it stemmed from and where it came from was, most groups were friends, right? There were people playing with friends. So GMs were usually the friends of the people in the group. So it's like people were thinking, oh, what is my friend gonna suddenly ask me to pay money to play in his game? And
Yeah.
there was this friction caused by these not unwarranted, but unlike there were these expectations or beliefs that weren't really rooted from any truth, right? Like if you talk to any professional GM, um, sorry, I should have brought some water here, or paid GM, they don't really ever run into the problems that people talk about that they think are going to happen with paid GM,
Yeah.
like
What if
toxic
someone doesn't
players
have fun?
because
How do you
doing what
handle
I
it then?
want because I'm paying, so I get to do what I want, right? So it's like it never
Yeah,
really
nobody's a
you might
jerk
get
about
one
it.
or two of those, but you get those in free games. So how come that would be any different in paid games all of a sudden, right?
Right. So couple things. So JJ says, just signed up. Thank you for this service. Super excited to get out there and do some Pathfinder 2e games.
Yeah, and
Um,
join our Discord because we've got a lot of people that can share their experiences. If you have questions, we're talking all the time. We hold workshops once or twice a month. We just held a couple and they're recorded. You can go back and listen to those. You can join us live. A lot of good ideas if you don't have all the expertise or knowledge up front. Definitely check those out and then come talk to us. We're always available and we'd love to chat about the stuff like daily.
awesome. And then Mike from Unmade Gaming Plays said, Damien, I'm curious what made you start your own GM as a service website rather than work with one of the more established ones?
So I would love to know which ones you're talking about because when I first started out with this, there weren't any. And I'm only aware of one other site that's actually doing pretty well recently that actually just joined, that just started a month or two ago. But any other sites beyond that, I don't know of any that are actually doing this successfully. I would love to actually know what they're because I have seen a few that don't look as active as looking for GM. And when I was developing this, there really wasn't much available in the first place, which kind of
Right.
led me to make it. So
Yeah, I
if you
don't
have some places that I maybe haven't heard of, I'd love to hear about them.
yeah, I personally don't know of a lot, but I've never really looked into it. I did have someone on not too long ago, like maybe a month ago, and she is a paid DM. She used to work for a company that provided the service, but I don't know the ins and outs of that, or if they have like a big website, or if it was just a small like, hey, we're partnered with like 6 DMs, and I have no idea.
Oh, like a group that's trying to do it as their own thing.
Yeah, like they then
I've seen those too. Yeah,
license it out or something. Because then I think she had to obviously pay them a cut, but I don't know how much it was. Yeah, I didn't get into too much of that because when we were talking off air, one of the things is we didn't want to talk too much about that because she didn't work for them anymore. She went out and just
sure.
started doing it on her own and was doing really well. So, and I think she was also doing some, yeah, she was doing some writing and some other cool stuff. Um, yeah, Mike, if you can post something real quick in the chat of any of the other services or other sites that you are thinking of, I will happily ask him. Um, yeah, I used to have an idea that it's funny. Oh, here we go. He did say something. Not trying to start shit. Oh, not trying to shill. It's just such a niche service that I fear spreading the butter a little too thin, rather than building something massive. You know. Um,
Well, yeah, I mean, I get that. And first of all, you need to, I guess, have people that want to work together. I mean, you can't force people to work together too. When I started developing it, I didn't see much out there that was doing the job, and nothing was combining both the payments with the added side of like it's not just about making people money. I don't, money for me is just a means to an end. I don't care necessarily about making money aside from being able to grow the service so that
yeah.
it's more beneficial. You can pay more people to get on board, and so you can grow the service bigger so that you can offer more features and more opportunities. Like that's really what it means to me. But if I can improve how groups come together by getting GMs, by letting GMs be available to people who can't find games, and so
Mhm.
that's why they're hiring someone, or their schedule is so horrible that they only have Friday mornings at 7 a.m. to play. Well, maybe someone in a different country or a different time zone can do that, but maybe charge a nominal fee that both parties are willing to partake in. So there's a lot of difficulties in people finding GMs that I think not only does this improve access, but we add this whole side of like actually connecting the right person together by getting like the right interests, profiles, things like
Yeah.
that. We don't want to just combine two people that might not match.
So that's the big thing that I heard that you mentioned earlier. Like that's my favorite part of what you've said. So back 5 years ago, I started this group on Facebook called the One Shot Group. And at the time, I was talking to somebody who worked with computers, more hardware and network side. But I had mentioned to him that I thought it would be cool to eventually develop a website, not like what you're talking about, but you would be able to rate players like that you've played with based on their styles, and like I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a 5 or a 10 star system, and you could say like immersive, 8 stars, combat focused, you know what I mean, whatever. And
Sure.
like so the idea would be that you could rate the players or the DMs, but at the same time you could rate yourself and say what you think you are as well, and so then you can get like an accurate representation.
Yeah.
And then then you'd be able to, like you're saying, filter people out. But I didn't have the money or the wherewithal to ever make that happen, so it never happened. But it sounds like you have something similar, but it's more of a self, like if I go to the site, I say what style player I am, right? And then based on that, I'll get matched with somebody, or is it like a questionnaire that I'd have to fill out?
So if you fill out your profile,
Mm-hmm.
the more you fill it out, the more it affects the percentage of a match. But then you go and view another person's profile. There's literally a percentage number saying how well your two profiles match, and then you can start looking at the reasons why that is. Whether it's you guys play the same games, or you
Mm-hmm.
have the same investment in role play.
Mm-hmm.
You like mechanical games versus narrative games, things like that, where you may not know that about someone just because, for example, on Roll20, there's a description of the game itself.
Yeah.
And sometimes they talk about what kind of GM or player they are, and sometimes they don't. You don't always get a great feel. And I feel like most of the games I've played on Roll20, I've not had that match that I wanted. And it's a lot of investment time. They want you to apply to their games, things like that. And so you lose a lot of time just getting into it. And then you get into it, you play for 1 or 2 games, and it's like, this is not at all what I expected.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. So he said the service he was talking about, it was started by the guy that runs Total Party Chill, which is fairly established name in the tabletop RPG AP community. Yeah, I don't know anything about all that. I'm not up on all of it, unfortunately.
If you want to come to our Discord and chat about it, I'm definitely interested. learning more.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot more out there too, and I'm sure there's some that are based on region and location and do more of an in-person thing. I bet you there's all sorts of stuff out there. Um, Especially the last couple years, there's been so many articles written. Like even Forbes, I think, wrote an article recently about paid GMing. So
Hmm.
yeah. Um, so you said you're from Ohio.
Yeah. Oh, I was
In
worried this would come
Columbus,
up.
the heart of it.
Yeah, yeah. I thought you wouldn't have me on because of that, honestly.
Oh no, no, no! I would. I have a lot of friends who are Ohio State fans. My friend Tom, who plays in one of our games and has been on my channel many times, he was a fencer at Ohio State and big Ohio State fan.
Okay.
In fact, he was talking smack today because the Big Ten football season was put off this
Yeah,
year.
I just heard.
Yeah, he's like, so I guess that ends the losing streak for Ohio or for Michigan. And I was like, actually, just saves you a butt kicking, which I don't know. It's probably wishful thinking. But my friend,
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually saw first. So I'm actually kind of from Rhode Island. I
okay,
grew up for like 20 plus years there, and I've been here for 6. So I've been here for a while, and I've kind of adopted, I think, the culture here because it's an incredible
oh,
culture here. It's permeates everything.
as long as you don't throw stuff
And
at fans of opposite teams, we're good.
yeah, no, I mean, come on, we're not barbarians.
Oh, I don't know. I know people who have went to Ohio State games with Michigan plates and ended up with their car between places where they can't move it because people picked their car up and moved it.
All right, we should not be barbarians. Let's put it that way.
Even my
But
friend Tom will admit how bad the fans are down there. He's like, "Yeah, our fans are pretty ridiculous."
it's crazy. Like they I mean, they cross out all the M's. It's
Yeah.
crazy what they do here around that time.
Yep.
So what do they do up in Michigan? What's something they do every time that the game comes around?
Not nothing like that. The only thing I can think of is we have some fans who will get like a bunch of Buckeyes and they'll put them on an anvil and you can smash them with hammers. That's like as bad as it gets. Or
Yeah.
so we do the week of the game. We do a walk where we go to like there's a like a pep rally and then they go to like the graves of like Bo Schembechler and some of the old coaches. And Jim Harbaugh participates now. I don't think Rich Rod ever did. But yeah, Harbaugh participates. I think Hoke has participated before. Um, and so yeah, it's actually it's pretty cool. It's kind of nice, and I even think like Bo's kids have gone too. And you're talking about like a lot of people who will walk through Ann Arbor to go to the cemetery and do this thing, and it's kind of this like peaceful like candle sigil and pep rally all in one. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, but no, like we're not that bad. Like I don't know, it just seems like even when we have your guys' crazy Ohio State fans here who totally make a big scene. Like an Ohio State fans nearby because they're like yelling and hooting. They're like really obnoxious, and like even Michigan fans treat them with respect, but it doesn't always go that way the other way around.
Yeah, it's diehard down here, man. It's no
Yeah,
joke. Like you better, yeah, you got to be ready for the culture here.
yeah. I'm sometimes afraid to drive through that state because just having a Michigan plate, you get pulled over. It's there's no
I am genuinely afraid for some people
yeah.
that walk through because I work at the med center. I'm
Mhm.
genuinely afraid for people that walk through with Michigan gear on. Like I've seen people in full the yellow and blue, like it sticks out like a sore thumb. Just and I'm
Yep.
just looking around like, all right, what's about to pop off here because this is not good.
Yep. I went to a
Someone get this man out of
graduation.
here.
I went to an Ohio State graduation. Gosh, we're talking 15 years ago. And I was like, I'm going to wear a Michigan shirt. And at the time, the person I was dating, it was her brother's graduation, by the way. She's like, no, you can't do it. You can't do it. And I was like, I'm going to wear it. So I compromised. I wore it under a button up shirt. But I definitely in the horseshoe, in other words, the toilet bowl, I did get a picture with my Michigan shirt, showing it off
Like
like
Superman, did
Superman.
you bust
Yeah.
out like yeah.
Yep. So there were some good restaurants down there though. Like I think we ate at some place near like the Columbus Blue Jackets hockey place. I remember it was really good food. Gosh, that was so long ago. It was a cool
Yeah.
town.
They
I
would
actually didn't have a problem with the town. I like it's massive. It's a pretty big area.
Yeah, it's very diverse. You've got
Mhm.
everything you want. You've got Greek, Mediterranean,
Yeah.
Asian food. I mean, you have every type of food here. It's
Yeah.
really like it's food. It's definitely a place for foodie.
Yeah. I think is that common on college campuses? Because Ann Arbor's like that too. Like we had Egyptian food, we had Indian food, like pretty much anything you can think of, we had. But again, I haven't lived there in 2 years, so I'm sure some stuff has changed. But yeah, there was a ton of different food places.
I don't know. It wasn't like that in Rhode Island for sure.
Yeah.
Providence was all like Italian food, and there wasn't a whole lot of diversity, and definitely not. No, I mean it wasn't there. Maybe other campuses, but I wouldn't know.
By the way, Mike from Unmade Gaming lives in Rhode Island, he said.
Oh, what part? I'm curious. I'm from Warwick, so
Warwick?
Represent. Yeah.
We'll see what he says. Glenn Miller says, born in Ohio, in Wayne County, been living in Michigan for 4 decades. Yup. Yeah, no, I don't have any problems with so okay, Michigan we do get a little crazy at Michigan State because Michigan State fans come and spray paint our crap. So we like set up like couches around, it's called the Diag. It's like a block that's pretty big, and there's a sidewalk that goes diagonally through it. And in the center, there's an old, like from 1908, I don't know what it's made out of, brass maybe. There's a brass M, it's actually a big square plaque, and it's got an M in the middle. And so a lot of Michigan State fans will come down and they'll put like an S and a U next to it or whatever. So we always set up a bunch of couches around it and a tent, and people camp out for the whole week. And then sometimes I don't think Michigan fans from Ann Arbor do this. I think there's like Michigan fans that live in East Lansing that'll sometimes spray paint their Sparty statue in the off season. So sometimes their statue gets spray painted maize and blue. But yeah, like, I don't know. Other than that, I can't think of anything too crazy that we do. And I probably hate Notre Dame more than I hate Michigan State. So, you know, but Ohio State's obviously number one. I would be so happy if they lost every single game. Every game.
I bet. Yeah, I don't blame you for feeling that way at all.
So Unmade Gaming says, I live in Warren, East Bay, baby. Also, Rhode Island has gotten way more diverse with food. Providence was rated one of the most hipster cities a few years ago. Oh, that's cool.
What?
Yeah,
I mean, great, but not what I remember. Of course, I didn't spend a ton of time in Providence, but right. I don't remember it much that way. But again, I wasn't there all the time. I probably missed out on a lot more than I could have seen. I was a beach bum. I was always in Gansett and Jamestown, Newport. Like, I was always on the beach, so I wasn't much in the city.
There you go. Yeah, it sounds like you guys made a connection. You guys need to become best friends now.
Yeah, I'll have to come back sometime. We'll play a game.
There you go. All right, so we've been going for over an hour. I could talk about football all night. I'm not gonna do that, but you know. Oh shoot, Glenn, my cousins are Buckeye fanatics. I'm sorry, man. But yeah, I've had a lot of Ohio State fans on, and I'm okay with it. I gotta do some charity by bringing you guys on. You know, make you feel appreciated every now and then. But anyways, guys, so I'm going to end up wrapping it there. I did post the link above to the website, and you can get to the Discord and all of that from there. Mike, by the way, says he's down for some gaming, it sounds like. So there you go. Maybe we can all play a Powered by the Apocalypse game or something.
Yeah, let me know. I'll run it anytime.
Awesome. We will. We will talk about that and set it up after the game. So again, the website is lookingforgm.com. Looking for GM, not a GM, just looking for GM. So go check that out. You can check out the site. You can see how they do the rating system of different people, the events, all that good stuff without signing up. And then just think about signing up if you're looking for some players or looking for someone to run a game for you. There's free options. If you're looking to get into being a paid GM, you can do that as well. So it sounds like minimal effort to get that going. So
yeah.
Anything else you want to plug before we go?
No, that's really it, man. I really appreciate, like, more even than the site, just the being able to talk about the philosophies behind paid GMing and how it's kind of becoming something at least more talked about, a little less stigmatized. Like that's my whole reason for even coming on here, is to just get the word out and tell people that it's helping a lot more people than people think it's hurting. Mm-hmm. And I really don't see how the community isn't going to benefit from it. Yeah. It's going to help a different market and a different subset of people. And those people are just are looking for it. And it's going to get more GMs going. I think it's really just going to help everyone out. So I look forward to being part of that and helping to grow it and empower GMs to do that. And I really hope more people join the discussion and come on by and chat with us, because we're always talking about these things. And Tom, thank you so much for bringing me on here. I mean, you've got a great platform, so I really appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Anytime, if you do something different with the site or make some changes and you want to come back on down the line, we can make it happen.
Great. I appreciate that.
Awesome. All right, guys. With that, this was Master the Game. I'm Juice. This was Damien from Looking for GMs. Game on.
Thanks, guys.